Good Wednesday afternoon, just around 12 o'clock, a little bit after 12 o'clock. Want to say good afternoon and welcome you to our Wednesday midday link up to lift up. As we always state at the very beginning, our purpose in coming together on this Thursday is to provide a brief word of encouragement to you. We've gotten to the middle of the work week, we hit the hump. And so, our effort is to make sure that even as you begin this downward trend towards the weekend, that we continue to keep your spirits lifted up, that we continue to keep you going with a mind of positivity. And even as we, begin today's um, link up, I want you, even as you come to be lifted up, to continue to lift up those in Buffalo, New York. Of course, we've all heard the news of the hateful occurrence that took place there as a gunman walked into a grocery store and opened fire with the specific intent of killing African Americans. And so we want to continue to keep in our thoughts and prayers those who've been adversely affected, directly affected by this act of hate. There's no other way to describe it. Um, those who have been injured, those who lost loved ones during the course of this. Good afternoon, Crystal. Hey, Wendy Bobendi. Thank you both for joining us this afternoon for this quick link up to lift up on today. We want to thank everyone that tuned in Sunday for our Women's Day presentation. We were incredibly blessed by the inimitable, the venerable Reverend Dr. C.C. Jackson. And we had a wonderful time in the Lord as she brought a word to us that was fit for the season we're in. And I am quite sure it helped someone to overcome some of the difficulty they may have been experiencing. Again, welcome to our Wednesday midday link up to lift up. I want to talk to you today about the promises of God. He promised a new thing in His Word, and His Word is faithful. If you look in Isaiah chapter 43, beginning at that 16th verse, it says, "Thus saith the Lord, which maketh a way in the sea, and a path in the mighty waters, which bringeth forth the chariot and horse, the army and the power. They shall lie down together, they shall not rise. They are extinct, they are quenched as two. Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The beasts of the field shall honor me, the dragons and the owls rather, because I give waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert to give drink to my people, my chosen. This people have I formed for myself. They shall show forth my praise." The Message translation reads like this. It says, "This is what God says, the God who builds a road right through the ocean, who carves a path through pounding waves, the God who summons horses and chariots and armies. They lay down and then can't get up. They're snuffed out like so many candles. Forget about what's happened. Don't keep going over old history. Be alert and be present. I'm about to do something brand new. It's bursting out. Don't you see it? There it is. I'm making a road through the desert, rivers in the badland. Wild animals will say thank you. The coyotes and the buzzards, because I provided water in the desert, rivers through the sun-baked earth, drinking water for the people I chose, the people I made especially for myself, a people custom made to praise me. Praise God. Again, and I just want to talk to you today and encourage you because he promised a new thing. Now, I got to tell you, I love this text. I love God's word. I love God's word when it is correctly and effectively exegeted, when his word is read and taught in its proper context and allowed the chance to exists in its original intent, then it is applied to our existing circumstances. I love it in that way because it can shatter bonds, it can bring freedom, and it can bring liberty to lives. It can change perspectives. Look, it can change perspectives even if it doesn't change the circumstances. Now, I got to be honest with you. I've always been leery of the preaching of this text. In my experience and my church experience, I've seen this text used to justify a man made change in what the church is doing. I've seen this text used to justify man made ideas of something new the church could be doing. The text has been used often to give legitimacy to someone's good idea. But in its original context, this particular text was delivered to the people of Israel at one of their most difficult moments. I think we all understand something about difficult moments. The people of the land had been scattered. Half of them had been taken into captivity in Babylon. Half of them were still living, or should we say, still existing in Israel. And the prophet Isaiah was sent with a word directly from God. Now, understand this. In the context of our religious experience, we're always looking for someone to prophesy. We're always looking for someone to bring a word. Now, I want to tell you something. You have to be careful about prophecy because there's someone who will prophesy over you and then someone who will prophesy to you. And for me, the difference in the two is the person who prophesies over you is speaking words of future endeavors into your life. That's where that's the contemporary context of that word prophesy. But remember, the prophets were sent to prophesy. And those prophets didn't always speak words about the future into someone's life. They often spoke with a word that came directly from God. And so that word that comes directly from God is intended to prophesy to you. Lord, having yourself prophesied over might make you feel good about your current circumstances, but having God prophesy to you can change your perspective. Now, that 16th verse, it starts off with, "Thus saith the Lord," meaning the words that are coming are not of my own volition, not of my own creation, but these words are coming straight from God to me and then from me to you. And being a true prophet, the prophet Isaiah was not inclined to add anything to or take anything away from what God was offering. But before he gives them the words of God, he reminds them of the works of God. This is what God says: the God who builds a road right through the ocean, who carves a path through pounding waves, the God who summons horses and chariots and armies. They lie down and they can't get up. They're snuffed out like so many candles. Lord help me. Before he gives them the words of God, he reminds them of the works of God. Sometimes we need to be reminded, my friends, even before we can receive a word from God, we have to be reminded about the works of God. Somebody needs to tell us every now and again what God has already done in our lives, even as we look forward in anticipation of God doing a new thing within our lives. You got to be reminded every now and again what God has already done in your life. So before you get the words of God, you sometimes need to be reminded of the works of God. Now, after reminding them of the works of God, Isaiah gives us these oft-quoted words. He says, "Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old." And I want you to know today that sometimes God has already done a new thing in our lives. God has already affected the change. We just haven't caught up with it yet. As a matter of fact, sometimes we get caught looking the other way when God is doing his new thing. I'm reminded, a dear friend of mine, we were together on Friday, and we were just chit chatting. And you have to understand that he and I have been friends for more than, oh my goodness, more than 40 years. Our friendship started off rather tentatively. You understand, I was actually best friends with his younger brother. I went to high school with his younger brother and his younger sister. He's and still is a couple of years older than I am. And after having graduated from high school, I attended Virginia Union, where, of course, I met Crystal Stovall. Hey, Chris. And we developed a friendship. And that friendship was rooted in a relationship that we had in a common friend. And over the course of the years, he became a fast friend of mine. When my wife went into labor with our daughter Taylor, I was on the air working at the radio station and couldn't leave. And I called him, and he went to the house, picked her up, and he took her to the hospital. By the time I got to the hospital, he was there with her. He was feeding her ice chips. You know, he was doing all the stuff I couldn't do. When I got there, of course, I kicked him out. I can handle it from here. But he has always been a friend and a force within my life. And we haven't always agreed on things. But the one thing that you must understand is that I trust him implicitly. I trust him with my things. I trust him with my well-being because of the relationship we developed over the course of these years. And so I've been having this issue with my shoulder. Some of you know I had shoulder surgery back in March, and it has been slow to heal. I've been going to physical therapy now for about 10 weeks and still struggling with movement in this shoulder. And so when we connected on Friday, he actually had shoulder surgery 2 days before I did. And as I'm standing there talking to him, I'm noticing all this mobility he has. He's able to bring his hands together over his head. He's able to reach behind his back, some things I've not accomplished yet. And I said, bruh, how are you so far advanced in this recovery process? And what he told me, Lord have mercy. Well, he told the preacher this. He said, man, you know, sometimes you just got to be willing to go through the pain. See, our tendency, our natural tendency is to get to the pain and stop. But the new thing, the new thing that God has waiting for you exists just beyond the veil of pain, just beyond the veil of tribulation, just beyond the veil of struggle. That new thing that God has for you exists just beyond that threshold where pain begins to start. And I'm not advocating that we beat ourselves up. I'm not advocating that we subject ourselves to a life of pain, but sometimes you got to stretch yourself just a little bit beyond the pain you feel. Sometimes, in order to accomplish the new thing God has for you, you've got to press yourself beyond where you want to stop. Help me, Lord. See, what God presents here is that there are some new things that will occur in your life. Isaiah brings this word from God to a people that were in the midst of bondage. He brings this word to a people that are about to come out of the mess they found themselves in. Now, understand this, it was a mess of their own creation. They didn't overthrow themselves. They didn't capture themselves. They didn't battle with and lose to themselves. No, but their own behaviors, their own transgressions, their own hard-heartedness, their own forgetfulness about the works of God, about the character of God, and about the grace of God caused them to be in the position they found themselves in. Now, you don't need me to make the obvious connection that exists between our current conditions of bondage, our current condition of separation from one another, our own forgetfulness about the works of God, the character of God, the grace of God. You don't need me to make that connection for you. God's Spirit will do that. God's Spirit will make that connection because this ain't something you hear. This is something you have got to feel. You have got to know within the deepest part of your being that God is faithful in the promises he provides to us. Look at here. It's not so much that God creates this atmosphere of pain for us. You know, sometimes the pain that exists within our lives exists because it is brought on by our own behaviors. My bad shoulder or my aching shoulder at this point is part and parcel of an effort to help me recover. I had shoulder pains in the past. I've had shoulder pains that limited my mobility. I had shoulder pain that limited my range of motion. And in an effort to correct that, surgery was done. And now the recovery from the surgery finds me dealing with the pain. But the pain isn't intended to stop me in my tracks. The pain is intended just to make me aware of what is going on, just to make me aware that there are some limitations in my shoulder, but I've got to push beyond those limitations. I want you to know today, my friends, that you are coming up out of your Egypt. You are coming up out of your Babylon. You are coming up out of your area of affliction. And even as you're coming up, you can see the signs of God's approaching redemption. You can see where God is ready to begin to do a new thing in your life. But I want you to know, my friends, that that new thing has already begun, that you have got to prepare your heart, you've got to prepare your mind, you've got to prepare your very being to go through some troubling times before you reach that area where God fulfills the new thing he has already promised in your life. Man, I am encouraged today. And the reason I'm encouraged is because I know that what I'm going through is not for nothing, that there is a work, there is a benefit that will be accomplished in my life, that there is a sense of hope that I have, a hope that is rooted in nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. And because I continue to hold on to that hope, because I am anticipating that new thing that God will do in my life, man, y'all wait, boy. I got a couple of more months, but I'm going to be faithful in the process. I'm going to continue my physical therapy, but I'm not going to allow pain to prevent me from stretching the parameters I'm willing to go through. I'm going to get to that point of pain and just hold on right at that point of pain. Just get to the point of pain and just reside right in that space, not backing up from the pain, but because God has brought me to it, I know he can carry me through it. And so if I just lean in a little bit, if I just embrace the benefit that I'm going to receive from the pain I'm going through right now, I can see what that future holds for me. Now, some of you, I am sure, are wondering, Reverend Fleming, what does your bad shoulder have to do with what I'm going through? It has everything to do, not in particular my bad shoulder. My bad shoulder isn't the cause of what you're going through, and my bad shoulder does not have the solution to what you're going through. But I think if you focus for just a minute, if you're willing to, for just a minute, consider that the pain you feel now isn't intended to relegate you to a specific place, but the pain that you're going through now is intended to elevate you and prepare you for the new thing that God is going to do in your life. God is stretching your boundaries. God is stretching what you think is acceptable in your life. God is stretching you to be able to receive that which he has for you. One thing you have to understand, my friends, is that you don't put new wine into an old wineskin. Because when the new wine begins to ferment, when the new wine begins to expand, when the new wine begins to do its thing inside of the old wineskin, invariably it'll bust that old wineskin wide open. But I want you to stretch yourselves. I want you to be prepared for the new thing God is getting ready to do. Now, again, this is, help me, Lord. This does not mean that everything in your life is going to change, because sometimes the new thing doesn't happen around you. Sometimes the new thing happens within you, that God begins to change your perspective about the pain you've had, that God begins to change your perspective in the things that you've already gone through, that God begins to do what I call a paradigm shift in terms of how you view what is happening within your life. I used to think of the pain I felt whenever I moved my shoulder as an indication that I shouldn't move my shoulder anymore. No, no, the pain I felt is the scar tissue that has been holding me back being broken and stretched. The pain I feel is this new area God is going to take me in. And I'm telling you, I can raise my hands about this high right now, but I am looking forward to that day when I'm able to get them all the way above my head. And it's not going to happen if I allow the temporary pain I feel to stop me from getting to my permanent and everlasting blessing. I want to ask that you continue to keep the good people of Buffalo in your thoughts and prayers. That during this season we're living in right now, that there are people whose purpose, whose aim in life is to defeat the good work that God has already begun in us. I'm telling you, man, God has brought us too far for us to begin to take steps back. And so I want you to pray not only for the good people of Buffalo, but pray for the people of this world. Pray for those who are even hate filled. Pray that God would begin to displace the hate they have in their lives with love, a love that is rooted in loving one another. God said, or Jesus said, that greater love hath no man than this, that he laid down his life for a brother. And then he said, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you. So our prayer is that this world will begin to realize the prophecy of Jesus within those scriptures, that the world will begin to realize that the only way you can drive out darkness is with light, and the only way you can drive out hate is with love. So you take care of yourselves, Crystal, Wendy, Sister Katrina, and anyone else that may have joined us for this call or this linking up today. And I hope something has been said that will encourage you to run on just a little bit further. Y'all take care. Y'all do good.